My name is John Evans, and I'm an ecologist at Memorial University. And this is the first lecture in a course on organic gardening. This course will run for about 13 weeks, and in that time it should provide you with sufficient information so that you will be able to be self-sufficient in production of vegetables from now on. If you carry through with this course, you will end up with rougher hands, bigger muscles, and in better health than when you started. This course will teach you a new appreciation of nature and your place in God's scheme of things. Gardening is for gentle, earthy people of any age, any sex, any income level. It is a relaxant for overworked people and a stimulant for bored people. Gardening is a small-scale, labor-intensive form of agriculture, and there are many ways to garden and farm. At one end of the spectrum, we find hydroponic gardening. This is a totally artificial form of gardening in which you grow plants in gravel or sawdust and add all the nutrients in chemical form. Modern chemical or scientific agriculture relies on a wide variety of artificial fertilizers and poisonous pesticides to aid nature in bringing forth a crop. Organic gardening is a complex system of gardening which attempts to mimic natural systems and spurns the use of artificial substances of any kind. Now, grandfather did not use chemical fertilizers or pesticides, but that doesn't say that he gardened organically. Many of his methods were organic, but many were not. Here are several Newfoundlanders who remember the old ways. In the dirty 30s, were you ever hungry?
No, I wasn't. We had lots of old rough grub and so on, and we lived off the farm then, more so than people do now, you see. That time, I mean, well, you had your own vegetables, you had your own eggs, and you had your own milk. It was very little we bought, just like tea and sugar and stuff like that and so on, you see. Mm-hmm. We generally had the rest of it all on the farm there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then when the potatoes were just coming through the ground, would be about the time the capelin was in. So we'd get capelin and spread capelin around on the beds, just so they wouldn't touch the plants. Mm-hmm. And then we'd heal the potatoes. We called them healing them, mm-hmm. but I guess it meant hill. I don't know. But anyway, you shoveled up the between the two beds. Sure. And you threw the soil on one bed on this side and then threw it on on this side. Covered the potatoes.
Mm-hmm. I always hear of this place in my memory that my people were always pretty successful vegetable growers, and this was one thing they always had a rotation which I follow still. We try to keep 4 or 5 years in grass if we can, and about 3 years in open crops. When we break the soil, when we break the sod first, we try to grow turnips on it. It's pretty clean of weeds and not too many insects at the time, turnips. And then probably follow with potatoes or cabbage. We never used much more than 3 years in vegetable crops and then get back to 3 or 4 years grass again. It's good insect control, it's good weed control, and it helps build up the, you get the sod builds up the soil. It's a good source of organic matter in the soil. You see, this soil of mine is very, very mellow. It doesn't get sticky in a rainy season, or and it's open and easy to work, and you get very good crops out of it. For that reason, it's been heavily manured always, and gone through this rotation for probably 100 years or so. It's most of its time in sod, really.
Yeah. I remember too that you'd have a lovely bed of carrots growing well, and then overnight they just fall flat with rootworm, isn't it?
Yeah, there's some kind of carrot maggot.
Yeah, carrot maggot it is.
Fly.
Yeah.
And did you do anything to control this?
Nothing at all. Your carrots were finished. You didn't have carrots for the winter, and you just took it for granted. It was just one of those things that happened.
Yeah.
Well, I saw that, but we people used to call that, you'd set potatoes on ridges.
Ridges, yeah.
They'd cut the sod, soil fur, and they'd turn it up both sides.
Yeah.
Then they'd set their vegetables on the top and put a bit of manure on there. Then they'd dig out the soil and just cover it in.
Yeah.
And so on.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah. That was potato sod and ridges. Then when they would dig the potatoes out, they'd dig up the earth, was underneath the spuds then too,
Sure.
see, and pick the rock off and so on.
Sure, right, yeah.
Like they thought they were killing two birds with one stone then.
Sure.
While they were digging their spuds out, they were clearing up some more ground at the same time.
Right.
John, nobody had ever heard of compost.
Yeah.
I mean, we were doing the things that our generations had been doing before us, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah.
In a way, it was compost, but I mean, it was not a deliberately planned compost.
This course is a rational updating of grandfather's methods of gardening. Much of what he did was based on faith and tradition. Hopefully, this course will provide you with understanding and knowledge. Ideally, this course is especially designed to meet the needs of gardeners in Labrador and Newfoundland. It takes into account the natural poverty of the soil and the harshness of the climate. It takes into account the specific insect pests which you're likely to encounter. In actuality, the course was born and bred in Logie Bay near St. John's, so that it is quite possible that the problems which I will describe and which I have encountered won't be problems for you at all. It's also equally possible that what isn't a problem for me, such as the carrot rust fly, will be a problem for you. I rely on your correspondence to tell me where I am wrong. I rely on you to tell me the weaknesses and strengths of the different lectures. Because every year I hope to update and improve this course. Every day I learn more and more. Every day I have to revise ideas which I had the previous day. As I read more, as I gain new experience. With your help, this new information will be passed on to next year's students. Each year, I expect the course will expand in scope. I'm already planning programs on potato growing, bog gardening, greenhouse construction, dairy goat maintenance, and these lectures will be available next year if there is sufficient interest in the course this year. First of all, I would like to apologize for certain shortcomings in the course. If the television pictures are a little short of CBC standards, try to remember that much of the work was done out in the garden, out in the field, using a handheld TV camera. I hope you will forgive the fact that I lack Steve Neary's gift of the gab or Man from Glad's sleek appearance. I hope the content of what I have to say will make up for these shortcomings. My producer keeps saying to me, "John, relax and smile once in a while." So here's a big smile. And that's all you're going to have for the rest of the course. Before investing your time and energy and money in a course like this, you should first ask yourself the all-important question: why bother? Sure, there's lots of food down the supermarket. After a hard day's work, I just want to put my feet up and relax with a beer. With 2 or 3 days' work, I can earn enough money to buy all the vegetables you're going to produce in your garden. These are reasonable questions. These are reasonable objections. I really want to hear from you what motivated you to start down this long, hard, and sometimes rough road towards self-sufficiency. When I seriously started gardening about 4 years ago, few people were interested, because then there were jobs, then there was money, then there was cheap energy. There was an easy optimism that the future would bring us more of the same kind of goodies. It is a well-known fact that home gardening thrives in hard times and dies with prosperity. Ecologists like myself are often called the doom and gloom boys, because we're always predicting bad things for the future. About 4 years ago, I read the writing on the wall, and it predicted that if things went on as they were going, our society was in imminent danger of collapse. From this, I concluded that the first responsibility of every individual is to learn how to survive. In a deteriorating society, there are only 2 ways to survive: learn how to produce your own food, or buy a gun and learn how to steal it. Organic gardening, which works in harmony with natural systems, is the only approach to food production which can continue to flourish in the absence of the massive support structure provided by the rest of society. While raw fear and pessimism got me into organic gardening in the first place, many advantages began to emerge after I'd been through the first difficult years where I made all my mistakes. The first surprise was that the produce tasted so good. Vegetables had a flavor that I didn't know existed. The egg yolks were deep orange and didn't smell of sulfur. The milk was sweet and unadulterated and undiluted with water. Was this a real thing, or was it just my imagination? Maybe I was just convincing myself to make the work worthwhile. You're going to have to tell me that once you start sampling your produce. The second bit of good news was that our cost of living started to drop. Our food was actually costing us less. And we stopped going out for dinner because the restaurant food was so atrocious by comparison. Because we knew precisely what we were eating and what kinds of things went in to make the food that we were eating, we gained a new confidence in the fact that we could control the health and well-being of our bodies, that we didn't have to eat pesticides and colorings and additives, that we didn't have to eat foods that had had all the nutrients processed right out of them. Because the vegetables were so good, we have begun to eat less meat. This not only saves money, but lowers the cholesterol intake and increases the raw fiber intake, both of which doctors tell us is a good idea. Another real reason for our shift away from meat eating is that we raise all our own meat. We've raised beef and lamb and goat meat and chicken and pork. And let me tell you, when you have to put a 22 to the head of an animal which you've raised from infancy, it tends to make your taste for meat wane a little bit. One thing I will say about our meat, though, its quality is absolutely superb, much better than you can buy. Last year, for example, we were given 2 goslings, 2 baby geese, which we intended to eat for Thanksgiving dinner. However, in a few weeks, they became more dog-like than the dogs, and as a result, they are still around and are likely to die of old age. In the meantime, though, they're supplying us with a good supply of enormous eggs. Psychologically, organic gardening has given me a sense of satisfaction, of peace and security that I have never known before. As an ecologist, organic gardening gives me great satisfaction. I know that I'm using a minimum of irreplaceable resources, that I am making use of tons of wastes which other people were going to throw out, that I am improving a small piece of ground for succeeding generations, and not just mining out the goodness and leaving a hollow shell for my children. Professional agriculturalists generally react very negatively to organic gardening. Some of their objections run like this. With organic agriculture, 50 million Americans will starve to death. Earl Butz, American Secretary of Agriculture, says that. Or, organic gardening is all right for backyards, but it can never be commercial. These statements ignore the facts that productivity of organic farms is as high as chemical farms, that there's more than 1 million acres of fields in organic agriculture in the United States today, that most of Chinese agriculture, which feeds 800 million people, is organically oriented. The agriculturalists claim that you can't grow cabbages in Newfoundland without poisons, and that just isn't true. It ain't easy, but it's possible on a regular and predictable basis. They claim that organic gardening is unscientific, and that's just plain bull. They claim that the quality of commercial vegetables is as good as the quality of organic vegetables. And I will leave you to draw your own conclusions about that. By now, I hope you know a little bit about the philosophy of organic gardening. But why would I want to teach it? Mainly because I'm totally convinced that this is the only way to travel into an increasingly perilous future. Also, because I get to know so many fascinating and pleasant people out on my farm in Logie Bay, where I've been teaching this course for the past 2 summers. My teaching garden is a pleasant social meeting ground where people can come and go as they like, where they learn and work and gossip and eventually harvest a good crop of vegetables. Now, a few words about the course itself. It should run for about 11 weeks. The second lecture will deal with books and tools. The third lecture will deal with the garden, its fencing, its drainage, its orientation and size. The fourth, fifth, and sixth lectures are devoted to vegetable varieties and their individual culture methods. 7, 8, and 9 are devoted to the soil, how to build soil, soil chemistry, composting. Lecture 10 covers garden planning. Number 11 is on seeding, transplanting, and thinning. Number 12 deals with weeds and cultivation, irrigation and mulching. And number 13 is on the dangers of pesticides and alternative organic pest controls. In addition, you will be supplied with a short workbook which gives you brief details which cannot easily be covered in the television version of the course. When you registered for the course, you had a book list, and you can write to Sharon Gray in the book corner to order any books you want, or ask your local library or bookmobile to order in the books that you can't afford to buy yourself. This is the second year that this course has been offered, and as a result of the experiences we gained from the first year, we've made a number of changes in the course. One of the first things we did was to change the name of the course from organic gardening to home gardening. Maybe we should have called it home gardening and small-scale agriculture, because we've expanded the scope of the course to include market gardening and some small-scale animal keeping. We changed the name from organic gardening to home gardening because organic gardening seemed to scare people off. They seemed to associate the term organic gardening with some kind of hippie kind of movement. I think you know by now that that's not what it is at all. It's an extremely serious, scientific approach to growing food. Now, in addition, we've added a lot of new material. During the past summer, we learned a lot of things. Some of the things which I told you the first time I made the tapes, I changed my mind about completely. So at the end of many of the tapes, I've added modifications. I've added new information, or I've told you I was wrong the first time around, that maybe you should do it some other way. In addition, we've added 2 completely new tapes. Now there are 15 tapes. The 14th tape is a group of material on windmills. We've got a water pumping windmill that I've got on the ark, and I've got quite a long session on building greenhouses. We designed a very cheap and easy to build greenhouse. Show you how it's put up, and if you're interested in building one, I can always send you additional information. And we start to talk about larger scale gardening, market gardening, taking in gardens of up to an acre in size, and the use of larger scale equipment. And the 15th tape is about the dairy goat. If you live out around the bay where milk is expensive or not easily come by, and the dairy goat might be just the answer to your needs, supply you with milk and cheese and yogurt. There were a number of things about the course which students didn't like last year. The main one was the cost, $30 per student. We have halved the cost, $15 per student. That's $1 for every session. We hope that you will be able to afford this amount. Another thing which was wrong with the course was that it was offered too late in the season. I hope you will be watching this course in February, March, or April, while snow is in your garden, so that you'll be able to prepare and plan your garden, order your seeds, and by the time May comes, you'll be able to get out and work the garden. I hope you'll enjoy the course. Thank you.